Hi everyone, thanks for joining. Just going to give it another minute or so for everyone else to join. So just bear with us and we'll get launched pretty soon. Hello everybody, thank you so much for joining our webinar today. As you can see, hopefully from the slide in front of you, today we're going to talk about, particularly, or should I say, focus on the first time buyer market. So we're going to run through some hints and tips for you on how you can hopefully get on the property ladder. If we move to the first slide, please. Technical delays. Okay, so who have we got on the panel today? We've jumped past that. Okay, we're back. Great. Right, so behind the scenes, we do have our glamorous assistants, Rachel and Kelly, in our marketing team. So thank you so much for putting all this together. We've also got myself, New Homes and Investments Director. We've got Luca, who I'm sure will pop on the screen any second now. Luca's our New Homes Sales Manager. So again, you'll hear from Luca. We've got Alex, again, Head of New Homes. And we've got, all importantly, Mark from Me Financial, who's going to talk through all things mortgages, which I'm sure will be the true value of the webinar today. Okay, brilliant. So I think from here, I'm going to hand you over to Luca, who's going to give you a bit of a market update. And then we'll rattle through these slides because I appreciate a lot of people are probably on their lunch break at the moment. Luca, over to you.
Thank you, Andy. So we'll just wait for that slide to load up for 1 second. So we've just got a little bit of information for you guys here, just around the stats available at the moment. Sorry, guys, just a few technical issues there. We're just getting to the right slide. Bear with us 1 second. Here we go. So the property market update. So a few stats on the screen there for you. There's a lot of negative information in the market at the moment around the property market, especially that, you know, prices are high, it's unaffordable, people aren't buying at the moment. But actually, there's a lot of evidence here to support that the market's still booming. There's still people moving. So if we start at the very top, the average new seller asking price rose ever so slightly by 0.9%. Agreed sales that was for 2024 are up by 16%. So that's 16% higher than they were a year ago and 3% higher than the pre-pandemic market, which is a really positive sign for buyers in 2024. February of this year also saw increased activity from buyers and sellers as well on Rightmove, with 7% more listings being added and 7% more buyer inquiries. Now, what that means is that the available stock and the choice has gone up. However, there is also increased competition as well, with buyers looking for properties. So while buyers do have a little bit of flexibility and time to kind of look for the right property, it's also important that when you find that property, there will be competition. So you need to be in a position to move and make that decision. The average asking price at the end of 2023 was £285,000, which is a really strong price. That, of course, includes your city centre apartments and, of course, some more affluent areas as well. That is just an average. The average rent in the UK was £1,260 per month, which is a 7.5% annual increase. And on average, household renters spent 26% of their income on rent, which is quite a large percentage and really kind of adds more weight to the argument that the right time to get onto the property ladder is when you're ready. That is a large chunk of your income that's been spent on rent that could be spent on paying off some equity towards your first purchase. We're going to lead into a little bit of a mortgage update now with Mark. So Mark, I will pass that over to you.
It's me already. Excellent. So thanks a lot, Luca. Yeah, hello everybody. Just a little bit about us. My name is Mark. I head up Me Financial Services. We're a team of 8 mortgage brokers pretty much throughout the Midlands, but we've got a few couple of extra down south. It's been a very busy period, as you can probably imagine, but we've done around £250 million worth of mortgages in the last 4 years. So hopefully as a team, if we don't know, we've got someone who's got the answer. If I can just go on to the next slide, please. So what I thought I'd do at this stage is just really, as a first-time buyer, I mean, the big question is, where do you start? This is often the conversation that we'll have. Really, you need to start with your finances. So the first step would always be, it's step number 1, would be just have an initial meeting with us and we'll work out your budget. We work for you. So whatever your circumstances are, we'll make sure we fully understand them. Lots of people nowadays have got lots of different income types and things, which I'll touch on a bit further down the line. But we just literally have a good old thrash out of your circumstances just to make sure we understand them fully. Then at that stage, we'll have a look at the market for you. So we'll search up to 100 lenders. There's sometimes a few more, sometimes a few less, but you know, the main ones are always there. If they're out there, we can certainly find someone for you. And then what we'll do is we'll explain all the costs to you, so you've got your eyes fully open, so you know exactly what you're walking into and how much it's going to cost against your budget. At that stage, you'll get the magical agreement in principle or decision in principle or a mortgage in principle. They're all fairly much the same thing, but at that stage, depending on where you buy, preferably if it's centric, they'll normally want to check that you've got something in place to show you've got your finances already. And at that stage, we'll assist you with all of the paperwork and things like that. After that, there'll be a valuation on your property. So there's 3 levels of valuation, but the main valuation or the valuation that is going to be insisted on by the lender is the lender's mortgage valuation. So they'll send out a valuer to the property to make sure it is worth what you're paying for it. Now, that valuation won't necessarily give you all the information you might need to know about, is it the right property to buy and things like that. Obviously, you've got a bit of comfort if you are buying a new build property, but if you wanted a more comprehensive survey, you can certainly order them as well, and we can sort of help you at the time discuss that. Then at that stage, you really need a solicitor. Now, a solicitor, the basic role of a solicitor, to put it in straightforward terms, is at the moment somebody else owns the house and the solicitor makes that house owned by you, and they join all the dots between myself, your seller, and also yourself, so you end up owning the property basically. And at that stage, once all the applications in, hopefully the lender's happy, the valuation report's all back at stage 6, you'll hopefully have your mortgage offer, and then you'll be in a position to start finalising legals at stage 7, and then you'll agree when you can pick up the keys and when you're going to complete and things like that. And that's pretty much it end to end. So a decent mortgage broker, or if you go to your bank, certainly, you know, directly, you'd want to make sure that process is followed. Now, what I'd also thought I'd do is cost is always a big thing. Now, lots are going on at the with rates at the moment, and obviously rates are way more expensive now than they were perhaps 1 year, 2 years, 3 years ago. We've been very, very lucky with rates, and I think now we're in a market where people are necessarily not buying to save money on their rent, but they're actually more buying because they want to own a home, they want to put their stamp on something. And just put some realistic figures down here. So just on this graphic, you've got with a 5% deposit, which basically means you're borrowing 95% of the value of the house. This is based on a £250,000 purchase price. You would need a mortgage of £237,500. Now, this was taken from 2 days ago, so things changing at a drop of a coin at the moment. But a 2-year fix would be 5.46, and a 5-year fix would be 4.99. So the monthlies on those two are on the screen there at 1,269 and 1,196 a month. Now, putting more deposit down generally means you're borrowing less, so the monthly payments are lower. But more importantly, the interest rate that the lenders offer you are potentially more competitive, which you can see on the screen now. So if you put a 10% deposit down, which if you're lucky enough to do, £225,000 you'd need as a mortgage, and a 2-year fixed was 5.05, and that's at £1,146 per month. And a 5-year fixed is 4.63, which is at £1,084 a month. And lastly, if you're very lucky and you've been saving away, or you've got some family help and things like that, you've got a 15% deposit, that's a £212,000 mortgage, and that's a 4.81, where the rates start to get a little bit more competitive at this level, which will give you a monthly payment of £1,051 a month on a 2-year fixed, and a 4.48 on a 5-year fixed. Now, the whole point of any mortgage advice that you get is obviously understanding what's the right advice for you. So I'm sure at the Q&A we're going to have some questions that might touch on that, but that's just a screenshot and a snapshot of what's going on in the market. The biggest advice we would give to anybody looking at buying a home, or just generally sorting out their finances in general with reference to a mortgage, would be just be prepared. So get yourself prepared. At the end, you'll have a QR code, which will be, by all means, you can go on there, but you want to get yourself prepared, and there's things that you can order like credit reports and stuff like that. But bank statements and wage slips are generally what we need, or you'll need to provide. So get all that in order before you have a chat with anybody about your finances. Just get that in order, and we'll review all of those documents. See if there's anything in there that might hinder you. Like I say, we're on your side. So if there's something on there that we think actually the lender might question, that we'll certainly raise it to you before the problem is pulled up by the lender. Income and expenditure and loans, so that really follows on from what I was saying. So we need to understand what your income is, what your expenditure is, any loans and things that you have. Are you going to pay off any loans beforehand? Those sorts of things we definitely need to know about. To get those in order, we need settlement figures on loans and outstanding balances on credit cards and things like that. Also, don't forget, things that you get on Klarna can be a thing. Things that you get maybe through PC World or something like that. All those little HP things, those buy now pay laters, all of that adds up. But like I say, we'll help you with that. I mentioned credit report at the beginning. So yes, credit report. Get a copy of your credit report. The one you can choose whatever ones you like. There's a million out there. The one that I would always recommend, and we can help you get that as well, so drop me a line or I can send you a link at the end, is Check My File. That has the 3 main agencies on it, and that will basically have everything that a broker would need, and also some very helpful ideas about what you need as well. And lastly, speak to your advisor about the availability of the schemes as well. So you need an advisor that's available on schemes. I think we're going to be touching on some of the schemes a bit further down the line. But just do a bit of research, understand, what your options are, and anything you bring to the table, we'll make sure that you're fully updated in terms of any information you might need. And then last slide should be a couple of do you know. So these are some common things that we sort of discuss with clients. But there are many, 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 many more. Like I say, I'm looking forward to the Q&A at the end. But some lenders will consider up to 5.5 times your income under certain circumstances. There's a big myth out there that lenders will do 4.5 times your income and that's the end of it. Under the right circumstances, there are lenders that will stretch. Now, those circumstances might be you're a professional, you're a doctor, nurse, a key worker, anything like that, where your income's expected to either increase, or lenders are just generally nicer to you because you're a great nurse and all that sort of stuff. There'll be options available that are there that a good mortgage broker will know about. Loans and credit cards can impact your mortgage options. That's what we spoke about before. So lots of times people have come to us and said, oh, I haven't got any loans or anything like that, but they have got a Mercedes on £480 a month finance. All of that stuff counts. The mortgage company wants to know all of that stuff, so we will need to know all that stuff as well. So all of that can impact on you. But then again, normally if it's being paid off in the next 6 months, you're coming to the end of a term, or you've got a credit card that you're going to pay off, a lot of lenders will ignore it. So as I say, we will understand your circumstances in full to point you in the right direction. Commission overtime can be considered 100%. So some people think, oh, I get a bit of overtime. A nurse might say, I get some bank work and things like that. There are lenders out there that will consider it 100% if it's regular enough. So, you know, don't be put off thinking it's only temporary or not guaranteed. You can buy a home with a friend. Now, that can sometimes stretch friendships, so I'd be careful about just running into that option. But if you've got a friend that you want to buy with, it's not completely out of the question. You might be in a similar line of work, or it's easy to commute. You just want to get on the ladder. We've had a couple of cases where people have bought with friends, but yeah, you just want to make sure your friendship's right to do that. And lastly, parents can help, and not just with the deposit. So it's very common for a parent to give you a bit of deposit, hopefully, and help you get on the ladder. But there are also guarantor type mortgages where you can have your parents be involved in the mortgage. So say, for example, once again, if you're in an occupation where you think your income's going to increase over a period of time, or maybe you're self-employed and you've just started up a business and you think your income's going to increase as your business grows, there are ways that your family can go on the mortgage with you and allow that to happen and support you to get the mortgage that you feel is affordable. But like I say, all of that stuff we would go through. I think that's the end of my slide, but yeah, just there I mentioned the QR code. I will linger and waffle on now just so everyone can get their phone up and give it a scan, but that will go onto our homepage at mefinancial.co.uk. One of the really great things on there, and we really urge you to fill it in, it's completely free. There's a lot of affordability calculators that mortgage brokers and mortgage firms have. That in the top right of the screen, there's how much can I borrow? That's actually a lender-backed affordability calculator. So that will actually check over 50 lenders based on the income, on the criteria you're putting in. And you'll get a very accurate decision or a range of what you can actually borrow. So if you do fill that in and you do want some extra questions, we're here to answer anything. Fill that in, it'll send the information over, and we're more than happy to have a conversation with anybody that wants to chat mortgages. I think that's me done, and I think I'm handing over to Alex now. So Alex.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you very much.
As we know, buying a property is one of the most stressful things that you can do. So hopefully we've got a few tips here that will make that process a little bit smoother for you. First of all, we do recommend, following on from what Mark has just been saying, you seek mortgage advice as soon as possible. Firstly, it just gives you an idea of the budget, so you know what area you're looking at. Secondly, it puts you in a better position. So when you are doing your viewings and then you finally find the property you're looking for, when you come to make an offer on that property, we can then, yourself or an agent can then put your offer forward to the developer, the vendor, with confidence that you already have your mortgage in place. And especially with the new homes market changing, the mortgage market, sorry, changing so rapidly, at least it's good to get you locked in as soon as possible. Determine your wants and needs. So I know when I was buying a property, I made a list down of everything I needed and everything I hoped I could get. Obviously, I wanted to have a mansion with a swimming pool, but that wasn't in my budget at all. So I think it's important to know, are you working from home? Do you need to have space for a study, an office? Do you need a 1-bedroom or a 2-bedroom? If the 2-bedroom is going to be for friends and family when they stay, or is that going to be used as an office? If it's just an office, then you could actually look at a 1-bedroom plus study, and then that would reduce the purchase price on there as well. Is parking going to be a must? Do you require street parking? Do you want allocated parking? Or do you even have an electric car, so you need to be able to install an electric charger? And then also, are you an apartment person? Do you want to be in the city centre, or do you want to be in the suburbs in a house? Pinpoint your location. So do you need to work in the city centre? So do you want to be close to all of the amenities, close to your office as well? You can walk out and everything is on your doorstep. Or do you prefer the quieter side, somewhere in the suburbs? Do you have pets? So would you need a garden? Or do you want to be closer to family? And one of the most important things I feel is consider the transport links. So if you're driving in, or driving up and down the country for work, do you need to be close to the motorway? Do you need to be close to train station? Or if you're not a driver, do you need to be walking distance towards a bus stop? If you're further from the transport links, more rural, sometimes the prices can be a little bit lower compared to ones that are on the doorstep of train stations. And what we find is properties that are closer to transport links do generally have a better capital growth. And the next one, so the cost of moving. So this is, go to the next slide, please, Rachel. So this one, we've done this on an example of a £250,000 property. This is quite an important slide because a lot of people, they think, okay, I've got my 5%, I've got my 10% deposit, that's it, I'm fine, I'm good to go. But they don't realize that you need to pay for your solicitor fees, which on average, they're around about £1,500. You then have your mortgage fees. So some mortgage can be incorporated in, some fees can be incorporated into your mortgage, or some you might have to pay extra. You have removal. If you're currently renting a property, you'll need to move your furniture from there to your new place, which again, on average, they're looking at around about £600. Stamp duty. So first-time buyers on a property from 0 up to 425,000 are exempt from stamp duty. But then if you're looking at property over that, then you would be incorporating stamp duty as well. So just a few things to note, that it's not just a deposit you need, you will also need to have circa £3,000 on top of that. So I believe I'm now handing over to Luca for our available schemes.
Thank you, Alex. So as we say, we're going to be going through a few of the first-time buyer schemes that are available to you at the moment. Now, there are three main ones that we're going to cover in this. So first of all, we're going to be talking about the affordable home scheme, which is very similar to the first home schemes at the bottom, but we're just going to go through a few of the differences there. So the affordable home scheme, they are available for all first-time buyers, but you must be a UK citizen and meet affordability criteria set by local councils. Now, the affordable home scheme sets a maximum income of £30,000 per annum for a sole application, or £50,000 for a combined joint applicant, and the property must cost no more than £250,000. Now, the shared ownership one is a little bit of a different one to the top and the bottom one. Shared ownership is actually where a housing association or separate company will own 50% of that property. Typically it's 50%. Now you would own the other 50%, so you'd buy that with a mortgage. So for argument's sake, if the property is valued at £240,000, let's say, you would only need to get a mortgage for the £120,000 50% share. You would then pay a rent to the housing association for the other 50%, alongside your mortgage payments as well. So that's a really good scheme to help people get onto the property ladder at a slightly lower value. Now, with that, there is quite often the opportunity to buy the other share from the housing association at a later date as well. So that's something to bear in mind. Now, the first home scheme, as I say, very similar, but it allows a slightly larger income of up to £80,000, whether that's combined or as a sole application with one person. Both the affordable home scheme and the first home schemes will allow the first-time buyer to purchase a property at between 30 to 50% of a reduced market value. It has to be independently valued. Now, it's worth noting that if you did opt for one of those schemes, you would then have to sell the property on at a later date at that reduced value. You wouldn't be able to sell it at 100% of that value. So there are a few of the schemes that are available at the moment, and obviously we'll be more than happy to talk about a few of them in a bit more detail as well. Now, we're currently selling a few units that have these affordable schemes applied to them. Now, one of them is Florence Place. It's a beautiful development over in Selly Oak, a lovely converted building. Now, you can get this at 80% of the market price. It's a 1-bed plus study. I think Alex mentioned them earlier as being a great alternative for some people that maybe can't quite meet the affordability for a 2-bed. There's one unit available there for £172,000, and as I say, that's calculated at 80% of the overall market value. Very similar to that, we've got another one in Lockside Wharf, which is in Birmingham city centre. Again, 80% of the market price for a 1-bedroom apartment, and there are 3 units available there from £180,000. Now, The affordable homes and the first home schemes do face some challenges, which we'll be completely open and honest about. When there is a cap on how much you can earn, sometimes you will find that you need quite a large deposit to be able to go for one of these schemes. Now, we are in touch with the council and we are pushing them to get that maximum salary pushed higher. They have now said that they'll consider applications of £35,000 for a sole application. So we are trying to push that salary cap slightly higher to make these schemes a little bit more realistic for first-time buyers. I think we're going to go into a little bit of a question and answer thing now. So if you guys have any questions at all for us, we'll all be on hand to get those answered for you.
So I think everybody come on.
So if you've got any questions, you can just pop them in the chat.
Yeah, I think just before we get into that, I think some really good information in those slides. Mark, I would say reach out to Mark, use his QR code. You'll all get a copy of this webinar on the back of attending. You know, I think some of the most important advice there is understand your position before you go out looking at property. I think that's really important. I think what Alex touched on was about what I call the non-negotiables. So everybody's got a wish list of 10, 20 items that the property must have, from swimming pool to solar panels to, you know, walking distance to train station. But I think you've got to be realistic with your price bracket. And I would say to sit down and hone in on what are non-negotiables. So it might be a driveway, it might be the number of bedrooms, it might be the location, and you might have 10 other things that are non-essentials. But you can tick as many of those off as possible and almost use it as a scoring card. So don't look at anything that doesn't have your 3 non-negotiables, but do then go out and look at properties and use it as a scorecard, right? How many of those other 7 items does this property tick? And it will enable you to shortlist a bunch of properties. I think what I've seen over the years is people view hundreds of properties almost and just get confused, and they end up looking for property for 2 years. But if you can go into it, sit down with yourself, your family, your partner, decide what the non-negotiables are, the things that you will not compromise on, and then find a property that ticks as many of those other options as possible. It's a really good way of almost using it as a scorecard. And yeah, like I said, Mark's really useful. Get onto his website. I think his website's brilliant for all those hints and tips. Mortgage multiples, affordability checkers, it's all there for you. So do get on there and have a look. Callie, I think you're in the background potentially with some questions. Let me just turn the volume up.
Yeah, we've got a few questions here for you that have been sent in. So first one we've had is, when is the best time to start viewing?
Okay. I would say, and feel free to chip in guys, but I think the best time to start viewing, in our opinion from an agent, I think to make sure that you're, I suppose, taken seriously, it would be when you've got all those things itemized. So speak to somebody such as Mark, a mortgage broker, get yourself an agreement in principle, make sure that you understand your budget, your criteria, your non-negotiables, then reach out, because I think you can get lost in lots of people that are viewing properties, and if you haven't almost come prepared, you might get pushed to the side. So I would say the right time is after you've done a mortgage in principle and set out a really clear criteria that you're trying to achieve in location, type of property, budget, and then approach agents through Rightmove or wherever you might search. That's the question.
Thanks, Andy. We've got a few more here. So as a first-time buyer, would you recommend new build or resale?
Alex, I think you might take that one.
I think at the moment, I would say is, especially with the cost of energy at the moment, I think a lot of buyers I'm finding are looking for properties that have a high EPC, whether it be an A or a B. Just the cost of living and helps their bills coming a lot lower. Also, what you'll find with a new build, you have your your 1-year warranty from the developer when you first move in, so for any little snags that come available, but you also get the benefit of having your 10-year building warranty as well. So you've got the security that if you're going to be in there for 10 years and there is some major structural accident, then you know that's going to be looked after in the insurance. Plus also, when you go to buy a resale, you'll have to end up looking at things like, if you've got double glazed windows, are they still in a good condition, or am I going to have to replace those? Is the boiler new, like it in new build, or is it going to have to be replaced in a year or two? So I think certainly, yes, with the new builds, the initial price might be that little bit higher compared to a resale, but your overall costs and actual maintenance cost of the property will end up being considerably lower. Hopefully that answers.
Thanks, Alex.
Yeah, I think I'd just echo that. I think new builds are very popular at the moment because people are very busy with work and life, and you know, the comfort that there's a warranty behind. Even the white goods, you know, you'll have a 1 to 3 year warranty on most of all of the white goods. Like Alex said, you'll have a 12-month snag warranty with the developer, and you'll have a 10-year new homes warranty. So I think people that are, probably focused on work and life and don't want the hassle that a second-hand property brings, I think that the benefits of a new build definitely outweigh those.
I'd probably just add on to that as well, that one of the main things that I've experienced on the resale market lately has been that legislation's just changing so quickly at the moment. You've got changes to leasehold, ground rents and freeholds. So you know that with a new build that everything is ticked off as per current legislation. And what I've found quite often on a resale product is that you've got a lease that's dated back from sort of 2005, for instance. Of course, this doesn't necessarily apply to freeholds, but if you're looking at apartments, it does. And there is so much legal work that needs to be done. There's a lot of lenders that might not have the appetite for those older leases and want to vary ground rents. So your sales time can be quite heavily delayed on a second-hand product.
Brilliant. Any others, Kelly?
Yeah, so we've got a few more coming through. So I'm wondering if I'm classed as a first-time buyer.
2 seconds, sorry, Kelly. Full.
Oh, can
Try
you
that
hear
again.
me? So I'm wondering if I'm classed as a first-time buyer. We were gifted half of our current property and bought the rest with a small loan. Mine and my husband's name are on the property, but neither have had a mortgage. Are we classed as a first-time buyer?
You might want to take that one, but I think I can answer it.
Yeah, afraid, most likely not, I'm afraid. If you've had the benefit of obviously having a property, you know, put into your name, that there are a couple of lenders, because there is a scenario, obviously, you know, with inheritance and things like that, it gets very complicated and things like that. But there's a couple of lenders who will, if say Mr.'s inherited a property from you know, from an estate or something like that, and they're just literally going to do nothing, but Mrs. is still a first-time buyer, or applicant 2 is a first-time buyer. There are some lenders that will consider you as a first-time buyer still. The thing I'd like to say though is I wouldn't stress over the definition of a first-time buyer from a lender's point of view. It often comes up where people say, can I get a first-time buyer mortgage? Can I get a first-time buyer mortgage? Generally speaking, I mean, I'm probably shooting myself in the foot by saying this, but it's great from a marketing perspective, saying, yeah, we're great at first-time buyers, come to us, we're a first-time buyer. The major benefit of you being a first-time buyer is actually the stamp duty you're going to save. And the benefits that you get with that. From a lender point of view, the benefits are generally you might get a free valuation, or you might have no fees for the application or something like that. But I wouldn't necessarily panic if you know, you're worried about being a first-time buyer and being defined by a first-time buyer, because at the end of the day, you're buying your first home. If it's your first, or you've got one in the background or whatever, you're buying a new home. So you know, I wouldn't be put off by the definition of a first-time buyer, certainly from a mortgage perspective. I mean, don't get me wrong, you're saving £7 grand in stamp duty, you're not going to sniff at that, but yeah, that's my answer.
Yeah, agreed, Mark. I was just going to mention that the main benefit you'll see as a first-time buyer is the stamp relief. And yeah, in the mortgage market, if anything, being a homeowner might might help some of the lenders show that you've owned a home and whatnot. So a bit of a track record. So yeah, I wouldn't overly stress about that. But again, if you want to talk to Mark or ourselves in detail about that, more than happy to reach out and have an in-depth conversation. Any others?
Yeah, thanks guys.
Keep us on our toes.
Next one we've got is, does the first time buyer scheme require UK citizenship?
Yeah, so most of the first time buyer schemes, if not all of them, I think, Luca, will require you to be a UK resident. Obviously, I think it's the government's way of trying to help UK citizens onto the ladder. Similarly with mortgages, Mark, I'm sure you'll pick this up, but trying to get a UK mortgage, being a non-UK citizen, unless you've got a working visa or the right to remain, would be challenging. But yeah, you would need to be a UK citizen or have permanent right to remain, I would think. Again, we're in contact with the council on these projects, so if there's any specifics that you want us to request or contact the council, we're more than happy to reach out, run your scenario past the council and the particular team in the affordable housing section department, and we'll get an answer pretty quickly for you. But generally, yeah, it's for UK citizens, and it can't be used as an investment vehicle.
Should I just add on the mortgage side for that, just real quick? So,
yeah.
if you have got a non-UK passport, generally it's all boiled down to you either need to have had a length of time in the country. So, say 2 years, for example, you've been in the country for 2 years, or the lender may say you need to have a certain amount of time left until your visa's up for renewal as well. So, just run it past us. There's so many variables, but yeah, just run it past a broker. It's not completely out of the question though, but the schemes probably are, I'd imagine. Yeah.
Brilliant.
Thanks guys.
Kelly?
Another one here. So when we like a property and want to put down an offer, how low should we go? For example, 10% asking price.
That's a really good question. That's a brilliant question for an estate agent. As low as you possibly can, no problem.
Yeah, how low can you go? I'll let Luca maybe take this one.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, I come from a background ourselves where we're, I suppose, quite a cheeky family, and we'll always try and get the best offer possible. Everybody wants the best offer. Now, as I mentioned on the market update, the number of buyers in the UK at the moment has gone up. So I think it comes down to a number of things. One, how much do you want that property? Is it the perfect property for you? And if it is, I think you just have to go for it and do what you can to get that over the line. If it's one that you think, if I don't get it, then I can sort of take it on the chin, move on to the next one, then perhaps, you can play around. And it's worth noting that a lot of the new builds at the moment actually quite often have some incentives as well, whether they'll contribute towards your mortgage. We've got some at the moment where the developer is paying £10,000 towards your mortgage in the first year. So actually, some discounts are actually already implemented. Now, one thing that I would also mention, again, kind of coming back to new builds, is that you might be able to get a bit of a better deal if a site is nearing completion. So let's say that it's a site of 200 apartments, for argument's sake, and they're down to the last 2 or 3. The developer might be willing to negotiate a little bit on those, just to kind of draw a line under the project and move on to the next one. What I would say with that is that it does mean that you might not be able to get the unit in that building that you wanted. So I mean, look, in short, I would say that sometimes there is room for movement, and it's always worth trying, but it also comes down to how quickly you want to move and how much you want that property.
Yeah, I think I'd just back up on that and just say I've always encouraged the purchasers that I've worked with to, if they like the property, to make an offer. We can be a bit British in this country, and some people are scared of making an offer or offending, or how the perfect question, how low should you go? The worst they can do is say no, and then you can, I suppose, adjust from there. I think there's a fine balance of being a little bit cheeky and making an insult. So I would suggest 5% underneath is probably a good rule of thumb, particularly in the lower price bracket. Maybe start there, and if it's rejected, you can work your way up. But I wouldn't be offering 20% off asking price and stuff, because what you're probably going to do is just annoy the developer or the vendor, and you might tarnish any future opportunity to negotiate. So I think be sensible, but there's nothing wrong with a cheeky offer, as we say. And yeah, what's the worst that can happen is they say no and you negotiate up. And as Luca said, perfect. If you really want the property, you know, you've got to be aware of the supply and demand seesaw here. So if there's 4 people viewing it and there's multiple offers, and you really want it, then, you know, go in strong. If it's been on the market for 12 months and, you know, it's been reduced a couple of times, you know, going with an offer of 5%, 10% less, and work your way up. But I think you've got to read the signals and read the room. It would be my advice. Each scenario is different, and talk to the agent. You know, the agent will probably want to do the deal, right? So, you know, they might guide you. They might say, look, it's been on the market for 12 months. They won't reduce the asking price, but they are motivated sellers, which basically means in lingo that they're willing to listen to offers. So I think speak to the agent, get their view, and you can probably take a little bit of guidance from them. Hopefully that helps.
Thank you. A couple more for Mark, and then I think we're done. So some of the mortgage lenders will consider 5.5 times the salary. Will they accept a 5.5% deposit?
A 5.5% deposit?
Yes.
Yeah. So the way I'd look at the deposit, they're not necessarily looking for a round number. So they're not going, you have to put in 5, or you have to put in 10, or you have to put in 15. So you can put down as much deposit as you want or can afford to. If you like, it's all about loan to value. Okay, so what loan to value means is if you're putting down a 5% deposit, you're borrowing 95% of the value of the home, which is loan to value. So you'll generally get one set of rates from a mortgage lender at 95%, and then a next set of rates at 90%. Now, if you put in 92%, you're not putting in enough to get you to that 90%. That doesn't make sense. You know what I mean? If you're putting in, say, 96%, no, 94%. God, here we go. I'm an expert, by the way. Basically, if you're putting between 90 and 95%, what you'll find is you're just not going to get into the next tier up in terms of rate. So you can put in as much deposit as you want to. The amount you're borrowing is obviously based on, will dictate what your mortgage interest is. But yeah, you don't need to put full round amounts in. Often it's the case because, you know, 5.5 times your income, for example, might only get you to 92%, and you want a 90% mortgage, so you might just be stuck there. But yeah, you're not necessarily, I hope that makes sense. Yeah, you're not necessarily strict to the amount of deposit you're putting down. It's literally all about the next rate down, if you like, in terms of tier of interest rate. But yeah, you can borrow what you borrow.
Yeah, I think that's it, isn't it? To unlock the next better rate, you'd need to reach that amount, but there's nothing stopping you putting in different variables of deposit until you reach that next category. Yeah.
I mean, and in fact, from a mortgage advice point of view, we'll always urge you to you know, consider putting in more money, because the more deposit you put down, the less interest you're going to pay, and the less interest you're going to pay over the term of your loan. So you know, if you've got more money to put in and you want your payments to be lower, definitely put what you've got in.
Good.
Thanks, Mark. And then last one I think we'll cover today. I've been self-employed for 18 months. How long do I need to have run my business for to be approved for a mortgage?
Okay, I'm going to talk in ice cream now because I made such a good choice in answering that last question. The vanilla, if you like, is 2 years accounts. So pretty much every lender will look at 2 years accounts. So if you're at 18 months time, the most options available for you will be after you've got 2 years of accounts. Now, we'll have a genuine conversation about it. So, for example, if you're starting up a company selling widgets, and then the first year you bought a load of widgets to sell, so your profit might not be that high, but the second year you've sold loads of widgets and your income's higher, there are some lenders out there that will use your most latest year's accounts for affordability, or if we just explain it away to the lender and say, well, that's because they just got started or they put money into the business and now they're moving forward. I mean, self-employed is really where a broker comes into their own, really, because there's so many complications and variations of being self-employed. But 18 months is possible. So, for example, Halifax, I'll throw one out there. So Halifax are quite good at that. If you've got 1 year set of accounts and there's a good explanation, that 1 year looks very, very good, for example, you know, they're generally okay with it. And, you know, everyone's got a Halifax bank account, but ask a broker first. But yeah, 18 months, you probably want 2 years. It might take you 6 months to find a house as well. So, but this is the beauty of having the conversation first, and we'll get a game plan of getting you into the house at the right time.
Yes, definitely. I think in that scenario, I'd encourage you to start speaking to someone like Mark or his team or somebody else, because as Mark said, to find the right house, to go through the legal process. We've agreed a deal recently where actually they were waiting on a pay increase. It had been put in writing. They knew what date it was coming in. We were able to agree the sale subject to them applying for the mortgage after the date of pay rise. So again, speak to the agent, speak to the broker. You know, you might be able to lock in that property at the right price, providing that there's a trigger point in 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, that might mean you apply for your mortgage then. So yeah, get involved early. I say the earlier the better. I'm sure Mark would agree. Get your ducks in a row, as we like to say, and then yeah, get out there viewing. So yeah, thank you to everybody for joining today. Hope everybody's found that useful. Might be worth just flicking back, if you could, Rach, back to Mark's slide with the QR code, because it's got a fantastic website that will literally talk you through the process. You can reach out to Mark directly. If anybody's got any questions, anything they want to talk through, we're more than happy to set some one-on-one time with either ourselves or Mark and his team included, to talk through your scenario and hopefully get you on the good old property ladder, as we like to say in the UK. But yeah, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for our amazing guests and people behind the scenes. And yeah, I hope you found that useful. Thank you.